This is going to be recorded and shared to our YouTube for those who were not able to attend, because this is really good information for our community. So thank you so much for coming to our awareness presentation. This is for our African American community, and we're going to be raising awareness in the Black community, talking about the Alzheimer's disease and related dementias and what that looks like among the Black community tonight. So my name is Erica, and I am the community outreach specialist for the African American community here in our Northern California, Nevada chapter. My work is based in Alameda County, and I get to help to expand our reach and education programs into the community with the leadership of the Black Alzheimer's Association Advisory Council. So it's very nice to meet you all, and thank you so much again for coming out. On today's agenda, we're going to be talking about what is Alzheimer's and going over the basics for those who may not know. We're going to be talking about the specific concerns for the Black community and the impact that this disease can have on caregivers. We'll also be going over resources and support and some other programming that is coming up. And then we'll finally talk about what we can do together before going into a Q&A. And please feel free to monitor the chat. I will be using that throughout the presentation to drop links, but I will also be monitoring it for questions that I will be saving mostly for the Q&A portion, but you can use it as a place to keep your thoughts. All right, so our vision is a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia for all communities. We do this by accelerating global research, emphasizing early detection and risk reduction, and maximizing quality care and support. At the Alzheimer's Association, we believe that diverse perspectives are critical to achieving health equity, meaning that all communities have a fair and just opportunity for early diagnosis and access to risk reduction and quality care. The association is committed to responding with resources and education to address the disproportionate impact of Alzheimer's and dementia. So what is Alzheimer's disease? So some of you may already know the answer to this question, but to make sure that we're all clear on this topic, let's level set. So what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? There are many forms of dementia, and Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia. Dementia is a syndrome or a collection of symptoms. It's what the person experiences, not what causes the experience. And I'll go more into that as well. Alzheimer's is the biological cause of the disease, or Alzheimer's is the disease of the biological cause of dementia. Dementia means that a person's cognition has declined to the point that it interferes with activities of daily living. Things like dressing yourself, feeding yourself, being able to take your medication, handling finances, things along those lines. We normally think of cognition as memory, but it also includes judgment, planning, orientation to time and place. So your ability to not get lost, essentially. And dementia can also include behavioral and psychological symptoms like agitation, deep disturbances, or sleep disturbances, depression, and anxiety. Most people who have dementia have it because they have Alzheimer's disease in the brain. And other common causes of dementia are vascular problems, such as vascular dementia. And vascular means anything that interferes with the body, the body's ability to get blood, oxygen, and other nutrients to the brain, and that compromises its function. So, there are also other common types of dementias that I'll be talking about that are on the screen as well. So another one would be Lewy body diseases, and that leads to Lewy body dementia. And then frontal temporal dementia, which is another type. I mean, there are other less common causes as well, but these are the big four that are on the screen. But I want to make a note that at the Alzheimer's Association, we provide care and support and do research into all causes of dementia, not just Alzheimer's disease. So if you or a loved one is dealing with another form that's not on the screen, that's okay. We're still here to help. And I'm gonna be dropping into the chat resources on why you should be getting checked. And thank you to those who just joined. Very happy to have you. So now we're going to be talking about the history and the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. So how do doctors know that you have it when you go to get a test? And let's focus a little bit more on those because on Alzheimer's disease in this conversation, because it is the most common cause of dementia. Many have probably heard that Alzheimer's disease was named after Dr. Alois Alzheimer. He's a German neuropathologist. Dr. Alzheimer first described the disease in a landmark presentation about his patient, Auguste Deter, in 1906. Auguste and Alois were living in a time of scientific revolution. That revolution at the time meant being able to have things like microscopes and better tissue staining techniques. So his description included biological changes in the brain that included three hallmark changes that we're looking at on the screen. So by looking through the microscope at the brain tissues, Dr. Alzheimer was able to note first, a buildup of amyloid proteins in the form of plaques around the outside of neurons. So these are, this first hallmark is listed on this side of the screen where my cursor is. The second one is the formation of tau tangles inside of the neurons. So in the neurofibrillary tangles picture, this is what he's referring to. And then the brain cell death or neurodegeneration that's caused by shrinkage of the brain tissue in areas of the brain most important for memory, planning, and behavior. So if you looked at the brain that's on the screen, you can see one looks a little bit more fuller, has more volume on one side, and on the opposite, you can see that it's shrunken, it's deteriorated, and that shrinkage is called atrophy. So these are major hallmarks that we're able to definitively say what this disease is and what it looks like. Dr. Alois Alzheimer proposed that these biological changes in the brain were related to the behavioral changes of the patient. So that's basically history and hallmarks that you can pay attention to or that your doctor pays attention to when they are officially diagnosing a patient with Alzheimer's. Now, did you know that there was a Black man in the room when Dr. Alzheimer came up with or found out about these hallmarks? Well, and if you didn't, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Coleman Starter Fuller. And I want to just give you a little bit of information about him that you can read on your screen, but I will happily tell you his story. Dr. Solomon Carter Fuller is widely acknowledged as the first African-American psychiatrist, but underappreciated as a pioneer of Alzheimer's disease. He was a assistant selected by Alois Alzheimer to work in his laboratory at the Royal Psychiatric Hospital in Munich, an experience that arguably paved the way for trailblazing research in Alzheimer's disease. Fuller received his undergraduate degree from Livingstone College, a historically Black college in North Carolina, and he was able to go on and began his medical career as a student at Long Island College Hospital in Brooklyn, New York in 1897. Dr. Fuller completed his medical education at Boston University with an MD. So Fuller's contribution to neurology, and more specifically Alzheimer's disease, is understated and more impressive given the odds he faced as an African-American in what was then a primarily white male-dominated profession. His seminal piece came in 1912 when he published in 2 parts the first comprehensive review of Alzheimer's disease at the time. He reviewed 11 known cases and translated Dr. Alo's Alzheimer's original case into English for the first time. I'll be dropping into the chat a link where you can learn a little bit more about Dr. Solomon Carter Fuller's full life contributions and recognition. So please feel free to continue your reading, and I wanted to get you on a good start as we round out Black History Month with continuing Black education. Now let's talk about continuum of cognitive impairment. So researchers now understand that cognitive impairment occurs across continuum, which is spanning many years. This doesn't happen overnight, essentially. We start off cognitively unimpaired. But as we age, some individuals will progress to stages of mild cognitive impairment, or MCI. MCI is impairment that does not interfere with activities of daily living, but biological changes in the brain have started to occur. If individuals go on to develop dementia, they will progress through mild, moderate, and severe stages. Dementia is defined as impairment in 2 or more cognitive functions that interfere with activities of daily living. Now, MCI is a known risk factor for dementia, but not all individuals who develop MCI will go on to develop dementia. However, everyone who experiences dementia will have passed through a stage of MCI that provides an opportunity for treatment and potential prevention. So essentially, if we can prevent new cases of MCI, we may be able to prevent new cases of dementia. And I want to drop in here the MCI facts and figures report to keep the conversation going. All of these links for me have been really helpful as I learn more. I'm in my 3rd year of brain health education and awareness. So definitely sharing what I've learned along the way. So it's important to take note of these 10 warning signs. If you or your loved one are concerned about cognitive health or suspect Alzheimer's, the 10 warning signs are memory changes that disrupt daily life, changes in planning or solving problems, difficulty completing familiar tasks, confusion with place or time, trouble understanding images and spatial relationships, new problems with words and speaking or writing, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps, decreased or poor judgment, withdrawal from work or social activities, and changes in mood and personality. So to save time, I won't go into detail for each one, but I encourage you to take a picture of the slide and read more about the 10 warning signs on our website. In addition, we offer free educational programs online and in person on the 10 warning signs that you can sign up for using the link that I am sharing with you in the chat. So it's important for this conversation, as we go along, we want to talk about risk and understanding what is risk and what may impact risk. So if you remember one thing today, it should be this: Alzheimer's disease is not typical aging. It has many causes and risk factors. Yes, the primary risk is age, which you can see is bolded in the purple circle. But it's also the primary risk factor for many other types of cancers. And no one thinks of cancer as a normal part of aging, for example. Similarly, Alzheimer's is a specific brain disease, and just like we have defeated many types of cancer, we can also defeat Alzheimer's. Almost everyone experiences something called normal age-related cognitive decline. And you guys know this well, or may know this well already. I know I do. Sometimes it can just be harder to remember names and faces. You just need another reminder every now and then. Occasionally, you forget where you parked your car when you leave the grocery store. Or occasionally forgetting my personal favorite, why you entered a room. All of these are normal and do not indicate that a person is on their way to developing Alzheimer's or another dementia. But it's good to know what the modifiable risk factors are and what the non-modifiable risk factors are in this. So non-modifiable risk factors are ones that we cannot change. And those are age, genetics, race and ethnicity, sexual orientation, and gender, as well as family history. And I'm specifically referring to the medical history that is within your family. If anyone else in your family has suffered from Alzheimer's and dementia in your bloodline. And there are some risk factors that we can change, such as environmental lifestyle factors, cardiovascular health, physical activity, sleep, social and cognitive engagement, education, and whether or not we've gotten a traumatic brain injury. So all of these in the orange circle are what we have control over. And those are called, again, modifiable risk factors. And we'll talk more about the research regarding some of these risk factors later on in this presentation, especially for what that means for the African American community. So this next portion of the presentation will go into more detail of how Alzheimer's and dementia affects the Black community. We're going to start off with hearing what caregiving means to Wesley.
My great aunt in Providence, Kentucky.
Are you all able to hear that, or do you need for me to turn it up?
I can hear it.
Was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I grew up in kind of the sandwich community, so we all took care of each other. She really didn't understand why I was bringing her food and things like that. They can't really adapt to our world, but we absolutely can adapt to theirs. With the Alzheimer's Association, they have a lot of resources, so you're not alone in the fight of Alzheimer's. Ask for help. Don't try to take it all on yourself. Caregiving isn't easy. Reaching the Alzheimer's Association is. My great aunt in Providence, Kentucky.
Okay, so let's talk about African American community risk factors, and this will be in a couple of parts. So this is where we're really going to get into the meat and potatoes of how this disease impacts us in our community. So African Americans are twice as likely to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia than any other ethnicity. We are also less likely to see a doctor in time to be diagnosed in earlier stages, and that makes us ineligible for treatments and results in more expensive care for chronic cases of this disease. There are over 2 million African American caregivers that provide 22 hours a week of unpaid care to their loved ones. We know that stress and racism contribute to aging the brain, which can lead to higher rates of cognitive decline in the African American community compared to other ethnicities. Depression, heart disease, and hypertension are known risk factors for dementia that are even more critical for African Americans especially within our home community in the Bay Area. And in the United States, Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death nationwide, with over 6 million Americans living with this disease. In Alameda County, these are the statistics that I was able to find from 2021. It's really important to highlight here that 1 in 6 Californians in the baby boomer generation or those who were born in 1946 to 1964 will develop Alzheimer's. Black residents aged 55 and older with Alzheimer's disease are expected, that population is expected to reach over 80 or 8,000 by 2040. And only 45% of people living with Alzheimer's disease or their caregivers report being told of their diagnosis. So these are just some of the few pieces of the story that help to fill in the holes of why this education is so important, and why we need to get early diagnosis and start thinking about participating in clinical trials. So I'll talk more about those resources, but this is why we need to pay attention, because in one of the most populated counties with our community, this is what the odds are against us in this. And it's not to scare anyone, but it's to have an open and honest conversation about what we need to do to reduce prevalence in our community. To continue the conversation, I will be sharing the African Americans and Dementia webpage that we have on our website in the chat. So the minority stress theory is our next topic. This describes high levels of stress faced by members of stigmatized minority groups, and it may be caused by a number of factors, including poor social support, low socioeconomic status, and well understood causes of minority stress are interpersonal prejudice and discrimination. And it's really important to note that for this next slide, this really is an example of what the minority stress theory can look like, because we're going to be taking a look at US historical events, but from the lens of the Black community. And I really want to encourage you to think about, where were you when these historical events happened? And think about the age of the different population that that are within our community. So those who were born in 1931 are definitely well within their elder years, as compared to those who are born in 1946 and 1952. But they were in different areas of their lives when the polio vaccine was introduced, when the March on Washington happened in our country, and when Martin Luther King was assassinated. These were major turning points within our community. So when you're thinking about caring for someone that has or is suffering from Alzheimer's disease or related dementias, it's important to take a look at some of the events that change the trajectory of the Black community when you are providing that care, and anyone else who is providing care to them. I've seen and we've heard of patients that when they are regressing in memory, they revert back to or say some things that can be harmful to others, but it's because they're stuck in some of these really harmful time periods, right? Like they're stuck, their mind is, you have to be able to put yourself in their shoes when they are going through this disease as it relates to their care. And while we talk about that, it's important to note that discrimination is a real barrier to communities receiving the proper care that they need for the Alzheimer's diagnosis, including seeking healthcare. So these are the communities that reported discrimination when seeking healthcare, with 50% of Black Americans and 33% of Hispanic Americans reporting incidences of discrimination when seeking healthcare. It's important to note that anytime we're speaking about differences in risk in ethnic or minority groups, genetic factors do not account for the large differences in prevalence or incidence among racial groups. Instead, the differences are explained by disparities in health conditions, socioeconomic status, and life experiences. In our special report that came out in 2021, we learned that there's historical context for this. These health and socioeconomic disparities are rooted in the history of discrimination against Black and other people of color in the United States, not only during interpersonal interactions, but also as enshrined in the rules, practices, and policies of US banks, laws, medical systems, and other institutions. And that's structural racism. For example, redlining in the 1960s was a discriminatory practice of fencing off areas where banks avoided investments based on the racial makeup of certain communities. And that's just, again, one example. We also learned about studies that indicate early life experiences with residential and school segregation, like during the civil rights movement, which many of our elders lived through, that this segregation can have detrimental effects on the cognitive health later in life. So if you're interested in learning more about the Alzheimer's Association Health Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion efforts, you're welcome to read our special report or watch the recording of the Health Equity ALZ and Me webinar series that I am sharing within the chat right now.
Can you ask questions now, or do you have to wait? When do you want questions?
Questions, well, you can feel free to add them to the chat, but there'll be a Q&A after the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
So we're moving into the hopeful part of the presentation, where we discuss how we can prevent and reduce cognitive decline within our daily lives. So I have on the screen some of the general methods that we share within the association and to other communities as well. So by incorporating a few healthy amounts or a few different strategies, a healthy amount of exercise and adjusting to a diet that fits your lifestyle, those are two great steps that you can take to protect your brain. You can also ensure you're getting enough sleep at night and speak with your doctor about taking care of your heart. Protecting your head with a helmet if you are bike riding or engaging in a contact activity is another great way to prevent cognitive decline. And so taking steps to quit smoking can reduce your risk significantly. But, you know, as I said, these are general tips, but I want to take a moment for us to learn about one particular way that the Black community can engage in cognitive decline in a way that fits us culturally. So let's watch a video together on music and Alzheimer's disease.
I was actually just getting my record deal when I found out my grandmother was starting to get worse with Alzheimer's. I still see her face in the crowd now, even though she's not here anymore.
My mom has Alzheimer's. She's had it for 13 years.
My connection to Alzheimer's is my grandfather.
My grandmother is going through this as well right now.
Song is what can really be a remedy for the hard times that surround Alzheimer's.
I picked the song, If My Love Could Kill.
Dock of the Bay.
Hello in there. Backwards breathing.
Dream in My Dreams.
Annie.
Stand By Me.
Raymond was a song I wrote about my grandmother.
I wrote Hard to Grow Up, and it was pretty close to after the time I lost my mother.
I was just writing these songs for me, and when they have a resonance with people's lives, then that's an unexpected bonus.
When people hear this song, I just hope that they don't feel alone.
When you're going through things, when you're not at your strongest point, you want somebody to be there for you.
A lot of times things seem insurmountable. Then you hear a great song, and all of a sudden you feel like, okay, this is doable. This is something that we can handle. Music has the power to make people feel that way.
Music's powerful like that.
It lights something, it ignites something. It's some kind of magic, it's the magic of music.
Hey, dude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better.
It's a possibility, a potential in all of our lives. Whatever research we can do at this present time is absolutely important.
If they could find a cure, it would be heaven.
I think awareness is the key to everything.
And if music can help with that in any way, that's a very special thing for an artist.
We're going to find a day when Alzheimer's is no more, and we will sing a lot more songs about it.
I can't whistle this time of the morning.
All right, so how can you help us fight Alzheimer's disease? The aging of our population means an unprecedented and growing number of people require care and support for living well with dementia. The most difficult challenge many families will ever face. Too few of them have information and resources they need to live their best possible life today and plan for tomorrow. And you can help us realize our vision of a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. The association has a variety of volunteer opportunities available to fit all interests, skills, and experience levels. And I'll be sharing later on in the presentation how you can sign up. So you can use your unique talents to make a meaningful impact in your community while connecting with others to share your passion. Whether you want to get involved by yourself, whether you want to volunteer with your service club, organization, or company or group, you just need some support or assistance for a family, friend, or neighbor. The Alzheimer's Association is here for you either way. Contact the Alzheimer's Association to find the role that is the best fit for you. And believe me, we have a lot of roles within our DEI team that can be tailored to anything that you're looking to help with. So these are some of our volunteer stories that have come in throughout the years, and it really shows that some of the common themes that the stories illustrate just how devastating this disease can be. The volunteers have been at the core of our work since the beginning. The Alzheimer's Association is a worldwide voluntary health organization dedicated to Alzheimer's care, support, and research. And the association was founded in 1980 by a group of volunteers made up of family caregivers and individuals who recognized the need for an organization that would unite caregivers, provide support to those facing Alzheimer's, and advance research into the disease. And these are just some of our fundraising and development impacts. And we really thank all of our donors that have been able to make some of these initiatives possible. Again, we're one of the largest, or the largest in the country when it comes to funding Alzheimer's and dementia research. And this helps us fund one of our free resources, our 24/7 hotline that has so many calls throughout the year, even on holidays, and we're able to help people in real time through crisis. So this is just information about our fundraising impact and what the Walk to End Alzheimer's helps to support. So now we're going to be talking about some community resources and some events for those who are looking to learn more about how does this disease impact the Black community in other ways. So our organization stretches care and support and awareness of Alzheimer's and dementia throughout the country. Within awareness, we provide 20,000 educational programs and workshops on our 10 core programs annually. These presentations get important conversations started in communities about a wide variety of topics, including legal and finance, when caring for a loved one, healthy living for your brain and body, and understanding Alzheimer's and dementia behaviors, just to name a few. You can visit alz.org/education to see a full list of our free education programs anytime. And speaking of, we do have a handful of specific programming coming up. Your family and friends are more than welcome to participate and sign up. In addition to community-specific programming, each month our care and support teams host virtual education sessions on our 10 Common Core programs. So on March 7th, we have caregiving and money management in the Black community coming up on March 7th at 7 p.m. This will be a virtual webinar, and it'll also be live streamed on our Facebook live page. So we'll be hearing from some current and past caregivers on what they were doing to manage their money through their spouses or their loved ones' diagnosis. And if you are part of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, we work closely with our faith-based partners like AME. So on Sunday, March 19th, we will be hosting a nationwide Connectional Purple Sunday for AMEs across the country to participate in. If you are looking to share this with your local AME, connect with me and I'm happy to share this flyer with you in your community as well. Within care and support, we have our 24/7 helpline that is free to use 365 days a year to connect with master's level clinicians and trusted guidance in crisis. We also have more than 4,500 support groups throughout the country and for caregivers and loved ones to receive information and resources in a safe space. There are a variety of support groups offered in person and virtually, with 40 groups offered throughout the Bay Area and Northern California region. In particular for this group, our African American Lunch and Learn support group is on the first Friday of every month from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And this is offered virtually via Zoom and by phone. If you would like to sign up, please call the 24/7 helpline that is listed on the screen. This helpline number will also be added to the chat after the presentation for you all to take down, but this is a really helpful group that offers plenty of resources for our community, and I highly encourage you to sign up. And you can also find this information and other support groups on the Community Resource Finder in collaboration with AARP. So I have listed our helpline number for you on this slide. And if you live in the Northern California, Nevada region, our chapter is absolutely here for you. I have listed our diversity, equity, and inclusion team members for the various communities that we serve. That is me. I serve our African American community in the Bay Area in our Northern California chapter. So please connect with me if you are looking for some in-person help. Outside of that, connect with our helpline if you would like to be connected with your chapter. So I'm going to go ahead and share these links, and Q&A will be open up shortly. All right, and so thank you, and again, and Q&A is now open. So if you do have a question, please feel free to come off mute and ask. While we are going through the Q&A, I would love for those that joined late to please go ahead and sign in for attendance. I really would appreciate your feedback on this presentation because I do a lot of these for our community, and I want to make sure that I include as much information, as much relevant information as possible for the next time. So thank you. And Q&A is open now.
Okay, I'll ask a question.
Yes.
That was very good. That was very informational. I work for UC Davis and the School of Medicine, and I'm working on a diverse dementia study. It's like the largest grant that the school has gotten from the NIH. And we are recruiting 2,250 participants. And like you said, it's research for all communities to better the health of all communities. And it's what I'm finding is we need 750 Black participants, 750 Hispanic, and 750 white. And the point being that Alzheimer's is 2 times greater in the Black community. So we're working very hard to make sure everybody is represented and the study is accurate and we learn from it. But I'm having a difficult time, and we're working with universities across the country, from the East Coast to the West Coast, like 13 other universities, University of Michigan, Johns Hopkins. Anyhow, how can we impress upon the Black community in particular the importance of research when there's so much mistrust among the community and the medical community, which I totally understand. I've read up a lot of stuff. I understand why I would feel the same way. How can we overcome that to say future generations can benefit from this?
Yeah, that's an active question that we try and answer within our work too. So one, at the association, we make sure that we level the playing field and giving people a trusted resource to look up clinical trials when they are ready, and then giving people accurate and factual information on our webpage. And we do this through a service called Trial Match. So we constantly vet clinical trials, and we encourage our volunteers in our community to make profiles on this platform, because it will send you trials that you are eligible for based on your platform. But it's not just sending them out or sending out your information to just anyone. You have to agree to this. This is on your terms, on your time. So in a nutshell, Trial Match really emphasizes how you can start to make that bridge. You make it so that they can control the process. They know every single part of that. There's transparency, there's communication, there's honesty, there's trust in the information that you're providing. And then you go forth and you establish the appropriate connection, whether that be through just helping someone make sure that they understand informed consent, or being there for them when they have those late night questions. Those have been really helpful in helping to foster the conversation. And people are more likely to believe you and to trust you when you give out helpful education, like helpful resources too. So I just highly encourage for the terms of that relationship to be set by the community and from who you are looking to partner with, because it's a hard conversation. As you mentioned, it has a lot of components, that a lot of mistrust, a lot of hurt and pain, and that needs to be honored in your process too.
Gina?
Can I add something to that
Gina.
as well? I can you hear me?
Yes.
We all are very much aware of the history and the reason for the mistrust and the reason for the skepticism. It is my understanding that I think bridging that gap would work much better if we were dealing with those that looked like us. And that gives a very comfortable feeling when you're dealing with someone in those positions of authority within the Alzheimer's Association, within these clinical trials, businesses that, visual, it has such a great bearing. And not that it diminishes the level of care or concern from other ethnic groups. It's just that we want to, and I'm speaking for myself and the group of individuals that I have spoken with, want to see people more like us that's in control of these tests, in control of these trials, that's reaching out to us, that's have a better clarity of where we're coming from and already know the history, so that we're not constantly talking about the history, that we're kind of moving past that and looking at the resolution.
Yes, you're exactly right. I'm actually kind of behind the scenes, and the study coordinators that are meeting face to face are of like race and ethnicity. UC San Diego and Texas, high Hispanic, they have Hispanic recruiters that can identify. So I totally hear you, and you're exactly right. I'm in the background trying to provide support to all these institutions so that I can help them do a better job and learn as well. So, but I totally hear you. You're exactly right. And I see Gwen Gates.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to speak to that. For the past 10 years, I actually worked for UC Davis as a research recruiter. And Jeffrey, you are right on target, because being an African-American person who's actually recruiting other African-Americans, that's the best way to sort of break down some of those barriers. And that's how I've been very successful in getting other African-Americans to be a part of the research study. I'm now actually retired, so I'm kind of working on a different field. However, that is very true. Because, and also getting other African-Americans who are already a part of the research to be what we kind of consider ambassadors, those who refer others, because they know what it's like because they're already in it. Okay, so some of the things in which that a clinical trial or basic research study requires, you have to make them know that this is a safe study. It's something that that is not going to harm you. So for instance, if you're asking to take a certain medication, or they're asking you to draw blood samples. So what are they asking? What are you going to do with my samples? Getting them clear about what are you going to do with the information that you are giving.
Exactly.
Okay,
How you're safeguarding my information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then also, what's going to become of this? Unfortunately, with research, it takes a long time. You might actually, take a while before after they get enough data to get an actual reaction. I mean, some type of hypothesis or answer. So a trial is very long, or some research studies are basically take a long time before you're going to get any major answers. But the benefit is being a part of a study where you get free comprehensive testing of memory, thinking, and problem solving. You get a chance to actually have your primary care physician to be together with the researcher to learn exactly what's going on as well. So they can work in partnership. So those are good benefits.
I want to say something. I'd like to say something here. I'm with the I'm here in Michigan, and I'm with the Alzheimer's Research Center, University of Michigan, as a community volunteer. And one of the things I always ask the question when you're asking people to do something is the question is always, what's in it for me?
Sure.
Right.
And we got a lot of barriers about all of these research and all of this historical stuff that went on about why Black folks don't participate in research. I don't totally buy into that, although I'm aware of it. I think now it is something, it must be something else. And the question is not asked in terms of what's in it for me. And that is clearly laying out what's the benefit to them, such as knowing what's going to happen, knowing what the family history is. What are those benefits? And being able to lay it out. We have the same problem in Michigan that you have, Gina, and that is we're trying to recruit more Black folks to our research. We also have Black leadership, and we have the same problem, okay?
Yeah.
So we're reaching out to minority churches and going and trying to educate people, number one, about the disease, also what help is available to them, why it's important for them to participate in research, how it's going to benefit them, and just trying to make sure that there's a clear understanding in the community why this is important. And just telling somebody, oh, well, we want you to do research, I don't think that gets it. I think what we have to do is spend more time telling people what's in it for them. And I think oftentimes researchers look at it from the standpoint of, oh, I want this valuable research. I got this valuable research. People ought to, and I'm exaggerating, of course, ought to beat down my door to come here. And I think oftentimes we neglect to tell people how this is going to benefit them in the community.
Yeah, and I think also that, you know, from Erica's presentation, that sort of showed some things because for the African-American community, we are learning that the risk factors may be different. Okay, so we won't know that until we get enough African-Americans to be a part of it, to know what exactly, you know, there's differences in different cultures.
Absolutely. Hold on, before we continue, I saw Shonda's hand raised and we have about 4 minutes left, so I want to make sure I get to her question. But this is really good conversation because it talks about like what can we do to continue to raise that awareness, not just about the disease, but clinical trials as well. So thank you for that question, Gina. Shonda, please go ahead and unmute and share your question. Shonda, are you still there with us?
Hello?
Yes.
Am I unmuted? I'm on my cell phone. I'm sorry. I'm
There
in,
you go.
and it's so hard to stay smarter than your technology. No, I kind of wanted to comment. I'm out in Western New York, and I've been in medical sales for 19 years. And I want to say for these last 2 years, just trying to push and educate the African-American community. You can't see me, but I'm African-American, about the disease. And just recently, I started doing a survey because I'm in the midst of also launching another company. And I did a survey on caregiving and caregiving burnout. And believe it or not, people do not identify with those words. It's almost, I would say, if I don't offend anybody, it's almost as bad as using some of the a terrible word, a bad word. I won't even go there. They just don't, because I don't know if there's some guilt or if there's so much negativity surrounded by those words that they just don't identify. And so therefore, if they don't identify, then they're not going to raise their hand and ask for help. But to answer some of your questions, what I found when I started to do this survey, instead of using those words, I started bringing up scenarios. And then once I brought scenarios up, that's when they started talking about caregiver burnout. And I want to say almost all of those stories were around Alzheimer's or some type of dementia. And so to kind of answer your question, if there's some way, before you say, hey, I have this research, if there's some way that you can create a survey and where you're pulling information, and vital information at that. I mean, how do we approach, you as a potential customer? I mean, can't quite use those words, but find out how do minorities want to be approached, and center those questions around that and kind of lead them to where you want. Because once I got those folks talking about caregiver burnout and those issues, they were open, to talk about, next steps, particularly, what I need help in with dementia. So I don't know if I said that clear enough, but I do know it's an issue. I do know that it's hard to get us out. I have my own husband who just had to go to the urgency center today to get medication because he has a terrible sinus infection. I've been on him for 4 days to go see a doctor, and he didn't. I mean, it's just in our nature not to go. But I think, to key on what everybody else has said, I think we kind of have to bridge that gap in understanding and kind of survey our audience on how they want to be approached. And once we understand that, then push forward. The other thing is, I hear everybody say churches, but what about the sorority groups, the girlfriends, the boule, these other organizations in which minorities are in, that we can go and educate and have them help spread the word versus just solely churches?
I couldn't agree with you more. I'm a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And that is exactly where, I mean, we have health committees just like churches have health ministries. And these are not just run-of-the-mill groups. These are people that are doing the exact same things that we're doing, having even more in-depth conversations about what works within their population, within their chapter, their region, even for these even larger organizations. So thank you so much for adding to where you can go to find more people. But I think the principle still applies, that transparency has to be there, and it needs to be a two-way street in order for people to want to participate. So I wanted to link those two large points together from this conversation, that to really gain people's trust, you have to give, and to really be welcomed into our community. You have to provide more than just surface level needs met. It needs to be a symbiotic relationship. Yeah.
I have a question. May I ask the group a question for my own? Has anybody done any research into why minority groups, Blacks, don't participate in research, other than just keep on using the Tuskegee Institute and I guess the mustard gas experience? Does anyone know why Black people don't participate? I mean, concretely, statistically, why minorities don't participate in research to the degree you'd like them to be?
We know too that there's also the stigma that we fight, but sometimes these trials, a lot of these times, these trials are not advertised to our community appropriately. People don't know about the things that they might be afraid of and to begin with. And it's why those rates are, below 5% for most of these clinical trials. It's not just because we don't sign up, it's because it's not advertised to us. We also don't qualify for some of these because they want, for example, a clinical trial that is in Alzheimer's, but they're looking for people that don't have diabetes, that don't have hypertension, that don't have X, Y, and Z. And who's that going to serve, really? Because that's not just our community that suffers from these. That's the Latinx community. That's our Asian American population. That's our Native American population as well, too. So we're being excluded at the same time by not being advertised. And then we're also afraid to sign up because when we did sign up, or before we even knew we were signed up, people were taking advantage of us. So this is a multi-issue that requires multiple solutions to handle. But that is an incredible topic that we talked about at our Alzheimer's AAIC conference, our International Research Conference, where clinical researchers and PhDs and doctoral students and graduates come together and talk about things just like this, some of the things just like this.
But I mean, have you done a survey? Any kind of survey?
So for our study, it's an observational study. There's no clinical drug being intervention at all. It's just observing people's diet, exercise, smoking, MRI, and blood. And so no intervention, but we did a multicultural campaign. We hired an agency that was a minority-owned agency out of Los Angeles, specifically because they knew their audience. And we targeted University of Michigan, Lexington, Kentucky, and Texas for Hispanics. And we just finished collecting, they received hundreds of forms that were filled out online. And we advertise on BET, on different television stations in the area. We did television, we did email, we did postcards. And literally we got 20 people total. And it was strange because in Kentucky, 8 of the 10 people were white. And it was all African-American advertisements. And I imagine, though, it's like you said, it's multifaceted. It's going to take time to turn that around. And so we are going to do a second phase of it and see if maybe we can improve our outreach as well. But I think it's a matter of time and education. And I think you have to give back to the community. You can't just ask someone to do something. I know in Wisconsin, they do nutritional classes, and they were talking about cooking collard greens and all their recipes that they share. So I know that that is super important to build that trust and engagement before you ask somebody to do that, to step into a trial.
Have you looked at denial? The fact that people may not want to face the fact that they could possibly get this disease?
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
The fear of knowing. Yeah, the fear, they don't want to know. Yeah.
The people I talk to and the people that I know, some of the people that I know that are in crisis now, you know, with their loved ones, they have, you know, going back to all of the issues we cited early on that Black folks face. You're not looking, you know, I'm putting this very poorly, but generally, you're not looking for something else to piss your life off with them, okay? And so that's why a lot of people don't go to the doctors. You know, that's why we have this problem. But I'm saying that one of the things you need to look at when you're doing this research is, what about denial? Has anybody factored in denial? I just don't want to know all of this. Have you looked at that?
Yes, one of the questions we ask to see if you're eligible is, do you have problems with memory and thinking? And we have found that when you say problems, that people say no. Instantly they say no. So we change it. Have you seen changes in your memory and thinking over the last 1 to 3 years? Like what Erica said, you walk in a room and you forget while you're there. That's a little bit different. People are more likely to say, yeah, I do that, you know, but if you say problems, it's, they don't want to hear that they have problems. They don't want to hear that and go down that route. I wouldn't want to hear it. I mean, who wants to hear that? Who wants to be told that? Absolutely. So yes, that is a big issue. A lot of people instantly say no, which makes them ineligible.
Yeah, and also in my experience in doing the cognitive testing, just doing a basic screening, and they find that they may not have scored, or that they realize that they weren't able to remember all the words in which I had given them. So that was a red flag. I'm, you know, they don't want to go any further because there's a fear or denial that there could be really something happening. Yeah.
Because you see, the thing of it is, you know, I worked on the prostate issue and the 1 in 7 Black people getting prostate. Why don't people go to the doctor? We got to work with Wayne State University on the Healthier Black Elders program through the Department of Gerontology. One of the main issues we got is trying to get people to go to the doctors, you know? So it's the same across the board. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, you know, the healthcare system, the history of discrimination and all of the other problems people have, and also not having money to go get the kind of medical care that they need. So they are reluctant, and I'm not justifying this, don't misunderstand me, but I'm just saying, as we look at all of these factors, it sounds nice for the researcher to sit there and say, oh, come on in and do this, that, and the other. And it may not, we're finding that it's just not that simple. You know what I mean? And so I'm saying we're trying to find other ways to get at it in the community. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I really appreciate this conversation. And I'm so excited. It makes me want to do another event specifically about like clinical trials that are appropriate and how to go about them for our community. So thank you so much for the fruitful conversation. I do have to end the event because it's only for a certain amount of time. So I just wanted to say that I hope the resources in the chat can be of use to you, and I will be sending them in a follow-up email. And thank you so much for attending tonight.
I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I didn't get a chance to really say anything, but my wife had an aneurysm 7 years ago, and she was just discharged, not telling me how to take care of them. Learned so much from what you were saying tonight, and I appreciate you.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Have a great evening tonight. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.